Welcome to Love You a Brunch podcast. I'm your host, Jodi Stapler. I am so honored that you are listening to the podcast today. Each week, we will be discussing food, drink, and entertaining. And I am by no means a food expert, so we'll be speaking to those who are. And we'll be asking the questions that a typical food lover, normal person like us, would want to know. If you like Love You a Brunch, we'd love you to join the conversation with us. Please use Twitter and tag us at Love You a Brunch. Today I'm going to be speaking with Matt Rodbard, co-author with Dookie Hong of the exciting new cookbook, Koreatown. Matt Rodbard is a journalist, cookbook author, and contributing editor at Food Republic. Stick around with Love You a Brunch. We are speaking to Matt Rodbard. He is the co-author of Koreatown with Dookie Hong. Hi, how are you?
Jodi, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. I have to tell you, I'm extremely excited. I loved reading your book. It was so different than a regular cookbook. It was not only a cookbook, but it was a travel book, a history lesson, a how-to guide, and actually it seemed like I was like talking to an old friend. I liked the way you write it. It's great.
Oh, you've been so kind. Thank you for those words. You know, when Dookie and Dookie's unfortunately not here, he's probably sleeping. He does still work in his restaurant, and it's 2 p.m. right now, and he's like,
right.
But man, so. You really nailed it. Like when we wrote the book, we didn't want it just to be a typical cookbook where we were just spewing our knowledge of dishes and shooting in a studio and just developing recipes. We really wanted to take you on a journey to Koreatown and write not just a book about the food, but a book that kind of dives into the culture of Koreatown and all of its glory and late nights.
Yeah, well, it had me chuckling quite a bit, and that's unusual for a cookbook. So it kept me wanting to read more. So that's great.
Yeah.
And the pictures are awesome.
Well, we made this effort. So with the photography, we didn't rent a studio. We went into the restaurants and we went into the bars and the taverns called Pojamachas, and we went to. We live in New York. We went to Los Angeles several times, went to Houston, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia several times with our photographer, and we really wanted to capture the realness of Koreatown. And we went in there sometimes announced, sometimes we went a little bit more clandestine. But I think, as you noted, it has some energy. It really, the vibe of the photography feels real. We think of it as a new kind of cookbook. It's the first of its kind. It's been written from the point of view of Koreatown, and not from like a food blogger's point of view or from a celebrity's point of view.
No, it's an awesome book. But first, before we get into all of the things about Koreatown, tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Dookie.
Sure. Well, I met Dookie about 4 years ago working on a small guidebook to Korean restaurants in New York. But before that, I've been working as a journalist for about 15 years. I've lived in New York for 13, and I've done everything. I've edited. I've worked at television stations, but food writing has been my main focus for about the last 10 years. And I was an editor at Food Republic for 4 years before leaving this past summer to focus on the completion of the book and all that. But I've written about all sorts of cuisines and traveled a lot for my writing. But I always kept going back to Korean food. My best friend in college is Korean, and he would take me to these restaurants, and we would go, and he would order, and I really, as a food expert, I was always the one being asked to order, but Korean food, was that time when I didn't have to order. But so I was always interested in it, and when we kept going to these restaurants and having not just barbecue, but soups and stews with these very foreign-sounding names, but I was just loving the food, I just decided then and there that I wanted to dive into it more as kind of an academic sense. So I started writing articles about Korean food, and it started very basic, like here's how you enjoy a Korean meal at a barbecue restaurant, 10 dishes to eat in Koreatown, very like basic things. And then I kind of dove into deeper topics, and as I said, I was asked to write this guidebook 3 years ago with Dookie, and that really sent me down this amazing rabbit hole that is Korean food.
Tell me a little bit about Dookie.
Well, Dookie Hong is a incredible kid. He's not really a kid, but I call him that. 26, and he's been working in restaurants since he was 15.
Wow.
Went to the CIA, Culinary Institute of America, which is some called the Harvard of cooking schools, and it's really a special place. And he moved to New York and worked at Momofuku Noodle Bar, which is David Chang's first restaurant, and he worked there as an opening as an extern on the opening crew, and he just gained a lot of knowledge. And working with Dookie for so long on this project, I just really got to know him as such a humble guy. Like, he really wants to learn, and he knows when to say he doesn't know something, and he's not showy. And in this day and age of the celebrity chef, you oftentimes see chefs who are forcing it and wanting to be show-offs and show how much they know. But at 26, he knows a lot and doesn't let you know that he knows a lot. That makes sense. But he was important, though, to the story. He was essential because I'm not Korean American. I'm a white dude from Kalamazoo, Michigan. And we needed to work together to tell the story. It needed someone from Dookie's point of view, a Korean American raised in New Jersey who had a family who cooked this food for him growing up and, ate in the restaurants in New York and New Jersey. I needed to, as a journalist on the piece, I needed to ask him a million questions about his food. And through those long sessions where we would just talk about everything and I'd record it, I was able to create the structure of the book and really note all these dishes that I think are so excellent to cook at home and eat in restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah. You apparently ate Korean food for 3 years, it seems like, nonstop.
It felt like that. I took a few trips here and there to non-Korean restaurants, but we were eating Korean food a lot and cooking at home. Through the recipe development, we would develop it in his home kitchen, and then I would take the recipe to my home kitchen and do it again. So I was cooking a lot of Korean food at home and eating in restaurants, and it was near endless. But man, Jodi, I never got sick of Korean food. Like, that's the amazing fact of this project, that say I was doing a book about Sicily, I probably would have gotten sick of eating the Sicilian style cooking and those really robust tomato sauces. I probably would have gotten sick of it. But, with Korean food, I never got bored. I never got sick of it. I really wanted to make it all the time. Dookie was so important to getting to this point.
Right. Now, how did you guys get together?
Yeah. Well, we met, during this project where we were going to all these restaurants and anonymously, independently though. So we weren't really, meeting up a lot. We actually just met at a couple meetings for the project. But then after it, I really was I kind of assessed the project, and I said, like, man, this kid who I just met, Dookie, really knows a lot about Korean food, and I kind of want to dive into it more. So we together wrote this proposal, and our agent was able to get it out there, and we sold it. So we sold to Clarkson Potter, and our editor, Francis Lamb, was instrumental in seeing the project through and letting us do what we needed to do to make a book that we both feel, all of us feel, is really unique.
Right. I have to say, I don't think I've ever eaten Korean food. I have eaten every other Asian cuisine I can think of, Vietnamese, Thai, Japanese, Chinese, and I honestly don't think I've ever had any Korean food, which is really sad when I'm looking at this because I think I would love it.
Well, Jodi, you need to come to New York and we need to head out, okay?
Yeah. There you go. Well, I would totally be afraid to go into a Korean restaurant. I wouldn't know what to order. I wouldn't know how to say the things correctly. So, yeah, I would definitely need to go with someone who's an expert.
Well, Jodi, it's not it's fair that you'd be afraid and you say that, and I appreciate you being honest. But my point with the book is to say, don't be scared. Yeah. There's nothing to be scared of. Go into these restaurants. It might look a little different than a restaurant that's Western and more polished. That the door might not work properly, or might not have English on the menu. I mean, there might be it might not look the same, but once you sit down, the Korean American hostess or waiter is going to treat you so well, and is going to, if you show any interest in the cuisine and you being in that restaurant shows interest, they're going to take you on a journey. And there's this misconception that Korean restaurants are only for Koreans and their Korean owners are crabby and not really interested in serving Westerners. I've never experienced that in my time in these restaurants ever. Just the opposite. When I ask a simple question, what is this dish? May I try this dish? Pointing at a dish that maybe I didn't know, like samgyetang, which is this ginseng and chicken soup. Most of the time, the Korean servers' eyes would light up, and they would be so excited to tell me about their home cuisine. So you're going to find this in the Korean restaurants, and if you happen to have Koreatown, you can kind of look through it and pick a few recipes or a few dishes that you want to try and tell them, the name of it, and I'm telling you, they'll be so happy to talk about it. Because really, the book is not just a cookbook. It's your guide to Koreatown. It's how you are going to learn how to eat around Koreatown. So you might, get a recipe here or there to make it home, but it also teaches you how to order and what to eat.
Yeah, no, it's a great book. So, I do think it's probably going to be the next big cuisine, don't you think?
It's Jodi, it's a tough thing to assess in such a short amount of time because, yes, Korean food is rising and it's been very popular with barbecue and Korean tacos. I think there's a lot left to learn and left to be known about Korean food. I think the it cuisine label has been foisted upon Korean food for years, and we haven't seen that many chefs cook beyond those basics that I spoke of. But that said, the timing's been great for our book because there are a lot of these chefs in America cooking ambitious food and going beyond the barbecue and beyond the taco. A couple examples are in Chicago, there's a couple really fantastic restaurants that are owned by Korean Americans. One's called Parachute, which is owned by Beverly Kim, and another one's Mott Street, owned by Edward Kim, and no relation. But both are really doing their own style of Korean American food, which is a mix of these traditional dishes with more Western techniques. So you're doing a fish head soup, you're doing, a kimchi stuffed cabbage and rice dish. It's kind of like a kimchi lasagna that Kim is doing. Just as these dishes are so modern and, but also so classic in flavors. That's just Chicago. I mean, honest.
Yeah. That brings up the point. Is it different in each area's Koreatown? I mean, do the foods change at all?
Well, there's a little bit of regionalization of Korean food. I think you've got, like, in the South, you've got, like, people doing, like, more traditional American-style barbecue with Korean flavors. In LA, you're seeing endless barbecue restaurants because LA is a sprawling city and land is cheaper, so you can do these big bowl Korean restaurants, with less of a stress with real estate, which is the case in New York, it's a little more difficult to run a Korean restaurant in New York because your margins are much smaller. Though you're still in restaurants, it's still a very low margin business. So for everyone involved, it's tricky.
So if you are comparing Japanese, Chinese, Korean, how are they different from each other?
Well, that's a tough question because they're three different cultures, but they're close by. So you've got this shared terroir. Japan and Korea, for example, share the same ocean, same water. So a lot of the same seafood is pulled out of there. But, Korea is a country of only 55 million. And Japan is like 200 plus million. And China is 1.2 billion people. Korea is the size of Indiana, with 55 million. So it's a much smaller culture. It's tiny compared to China. But with that, you see Korea's influence in Asia is profound. I mean, and Korea's influence in America is profound. Companies like Samsung and LG, Hyundai, K-pop, Psy, you've got
right.
Korean gaming companies. For a country of 55 million, their status in the world is incredible. So that's what I like to say when you compare the three cultures. Korea they built themselves up from very little after the war in the 50s and were able to miraculously become a superpower with technology. And I'm so impressed when I talk to Korean Americans about their family histories. There's so much work and so much dedication that went into it.
This is Love You a Brunch, the show for those who'd rather be brunching. Hi, I'm Jodi Stapler. Today I'm going to be speaking with Matt Rodbard, co-author with Dookie Hong of the exciting new cookbook, Koreatown. Matt Rodbard is a journalist, cookbook author, and contributing editor at Food Republic. Stick around with Love You a Brunch.
Where are you located at, Jodi?
I'm in Pennsylvania, Lancaster County.
Oh, wonderful. So you're close to both New York and Philadelphia.
Yep, that's right. About an hour and a half away from Philadelphia and about 3 hours from New York.
Yeah, so you've got a couple Koreatowns nearby.
We do, and I'm surprised we don't have any. Well, we do. I shouldn't say that. I did look up to see if we had a Korean restaurant, and we do, but the reviews for it are not that great. So I thought, well, this probably isn't the one to check out Korean food with.
Here's my thing. I think you've done the right thing. You've Googled, you've seen that there's a Korean restaurant near you. In the book, I encourage people to do exactly what you did. Google your hometown's name and Korean restaurant and see what comes up. And be surprised. There will be one or two or three. And reviews are tricky because like all restaurant reviews, you have to take them with a grain of salt.
Right.
Grain of rice, so to speak.
Well, I noticed that the non-Korean people thought it was great, but the Korean people all were like, this is horrible. I would never eat here again. So, and I want authentic.
Well, Koreans are really notoriously tough on themselves. It's really the case because a lot of times Korean food is the best in the home, and everyone has an opinion about what's better this way, that way to make the dish. I would say try for yourself, even if the reviews are like, this is the worst mandu, how could they serve this mandu? I still think you're going to get some basics right. You're going to get a banchan spread that's really cool. Those are the plates that arrive before the meal. Yeah. You're going to get something soupy and stewy. You're going to get something grilled. And, order on the menu. And so, like any restaurant, if maybe this dish doesn't work, maybe you just don't eat it and try some other things. But with Korean food, as I said at the start of this interview, I've not had a really bad Korean meal. There's always been an element that's been good. So I hope you go to that place and you let me know how it is. I
will. Maybe even this weekend. Maybe I'll take my kids. We'll see what they think of it.
That'd be great. I love Korean food.
So your book, it's excellent because it has all these different sections. Of course, you have your recipes, and then you have little tips in there, which I like. Like there's one that says, if you're going to be cooking it at home, how not to get your neighbors upset with you. It's like little things like that really just make it worth reading the book. It's funny because, like I said, I'm from Lancaster County, home of the Amish and the Mennonites and the Pennsylvania Dutch. And it's funny that you guys in this Korean cookbook point out that they cook with mayonnaise quite a lot. And that is definitely something Lancaster County uses quite a lot.
Mayonnaise is truly the American influence on Korean cooking.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. There's something you'll find at many restaurants, which you'll also find in southern restaurants, which is potato salad.
Oh, exactly.
It's a Korean-style potato salad. And it's the beauty of Korean food. It's in America. There's been this, in the 70s and 80s, Koreans immigrated to the United States and brought these wonderful food traditions with them. But of course, living in America, you can't, avoid certain products, and mayonnaise is one of them. Fried chicken is another one. But they've been integrated into the cooking in this unique way that I think is just interesting to write about and even better to eat.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something that, even if I had a bunch of people over, like, the older people in the family that might be a little hesitant to try something if you've just pulled out something that's a little bit more familiar, like the potato salad or even just like fried chicken, but with the extra spices and things like that, that maybe they'd be a little bit more willing to try. So
yeah, I think you should try both.
Yeah.
You should try the little bit like the safer stuff. Maybe surprise yourself and try something a little bit foreign to your kitchen, and you might surprise yourself, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Your kids like anchovy stock. Maybe not though. I mean, anchovy stock probably is not what a young child would like, but there's like a lot of dishes in here we think. Like one example is the braised short ribs, which is it's called kalbi jim, and it's Korean, of course, but when you cook it and you taste it, it's almost like Brunswick stew. Make it in a slow cooker. It's short ribs that have been braised with the puree of apples and pears and sake and soy sauce and mirin and garlic, lots of garlic in there, and a little bit of ginger and potatoes and carrots and Korean dates. So you've got this dish that looks like it could be a wine-based soup or stew, but in actuality, it's incredibly Korean, and the aroma of East Asia will flow through your house, and your neighbors will be incredibly jealous.
Well, you're pointing out that a lot of the things that you use in these Korean recipes, we already have in our homes. I mean, I already have soy sauce, garlic, all of those things. I might not have the anchovy stock, but, mostly everything here I could gather together today.
Oh, for sure. It's surprising to many when they actually look at our recipes and they see the familiarity. When you're cooking with Korean flavors, you're cooking with a pretty pared down larder, as you mentioned. Garlic is essential, but everyone has garlic, ginger, scallions, soy sauce, sesame oil. These things are very much easily found. The ones that are a little bit more difficult to find, like gochujang and doenjang, are maybe not carried at Kroger, though I've seen them at Kroger's in certain cities, but you're going to find them at an Asian grocery store.
Yeah.
And like Korean restaurants, Asian grocery stores are in every town. You just have to Google it, and you'll be sent there. Put it into Google Maps, and I'm sure it'll be within 10 to 15-minute drive.
Oh yeah, probably.
But Korean food is cool because it's not like, say, Thai or Vietnamese food, which is based on a lot of exotic herbs that are more difficult to find, and tropical fruits. Korean food is grown Korean recipes are derived from Korea, where there's a pretty short growing season. So the larder is pretty pared down in terms of the vegetables and fruit required for it.
Now, you pointed out in the book that you think of Koreans, you think of them drinking alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a cultural thing. It's not like they're just going out to get wasted.
Oh, absolutely not. And that's a good point, because a lot of times you assume, this is this kind of mindless drinking, and it's not, it's a really like lush-centric lifestyle. And of course you do drink when you go out to Korean restaurants, but you're always having food, and food is essential. It's part of the process. It's part of always pairing. It's not just getting hammered at the bar, like a binge drinking scenario. Which I really respect. There's a bit of harmony to the drinking, and we have a whole chapter called Pojumajang, which is the name of these Korean style bars, and the food is the drink savvy, I guess you could call it. It's very smart to pair with drinks.
And I like that you have all the recipes for the drinks in the back. And then there's some that aren't alcoholic as well. So if, you want to try different ones and you don't drink alcohol, that you can still do it.
Yeah, it's totally that. You don't need to drink to enjoy Korean food. Absolutely not. There's lots of non-alcoholic punches and drinks in the back.
You don't think of Asian food and desserts. So I do like that you guys added that in there. You don't often get a dessert when you go to an Asian restaurant, maybe like some green tea ice cream or something like that. But the fried pancakes, I think, the sweet fried pancakes look delicious. I think.
Kookbook is great. That's a good one for sure.
Some of the funny things I have written down here in my notes. Let's see here. Black Day.
The whole story with Black Day and White Day and the dish that goes along with it is, so February 14th is Valentine's Day. We celebrate that here. In Korea, March 14th is White Day, which is the month after Valentine's Day in Korea and in other cultures as well. But that's when the lady is supposed to give the man a gift. You know, it's reversing the roles, so to speak, with a gender normative point of view. You know, using that gender normative point of view. But Black Day is April 14th, which is 2 months after Valentine's Day, and that's when the singles are lamenting their singledom, and it's very grim, you know. So in Korea, you eat this dish called jjajangmyeon, which is a black bean noodle dish, and it's made of black bean paste called chojang or chunjang, sorry, and it's you're supposed to, I guess, order that up. If you're single, go into a corner, slurp the noodles, and just feel sad for yourself. Truly, Korean way to celebrate.
Oh, that's funny.
It's different.
Well, it's, that's what I like about the book. Like I said, it's kind of like this, guide on just the culture itself. It's not like, I don't sit and read cookbooks. I mean, I like cookbooks, but I won't sit there and actually read them. I was actually reading this, chuckling, enjoying it. Like I'm reading any other novel or book that I'm reading.
Well, thanks a lot. That was the goal, is just to really kind of sharpen the writing and make it enjoyable. And I appreciate that, because it takes, we didn't just want to knock out 100 recipes with boring head notes, because no one wants to read boring head notes,
right.
You know? So you're reading these head notes, and that's cool. I really appreciate that.
Now, also, how did you get these other chefs to willingly give you their recipes or come up with other recipes for you?
Well, we have, Dookie and I have a lot of friends in the business just from working for so long and in different capacities. So it was really fortunate that we could get these recipes from these chefs. You know, that we made a goal, though, to only work with chefs who we thought kind of understood Korean food, who loved Korean food and loved it so much that they put these dishes on their menus that weren't just like kimchi tacos, fried chicken. So we have like chefs like Amanda Cohen, who runs a cool restaurant called Dirt Candy in New York. She does a dish called Korean fried broccoli, which is such a genius play, and she does a really nice, tosses it with a great gochujang sauce. And, Stuart Brioza is a chef at State Bread Provision in San Francisco. He makes some kimchi, and he did this great yuba dish, which was just the flavors of kimchi put onto a fresh tofu skin. Many examples of these chefs just riffing on with Korean flavors and being super creative. And we thought it was so fun to collaborate with them. And Dookie often says it's his favorite chapter in the entire book.
It is a really cool chapter, and it's neat to see other people's takes. And I also like you guys have a couple other different celebrities that aren't chefs. You have the lead singer to Fall Out Boy, and Andy
Milonakis, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. People like that who, just have a love for Korean food. So it's neat to read.
Thank you. We wanted to reach out to those folks as well. People who are maybe not chefs or writers, but people who had a connection to Korean food. And we took them out for a meal, and we kind of picked their brain about a certain topic. So we met with Adam Johnson, who's a novelist. He won the Pulitzer for this great book called Orphan Master's Son, and we went to San Francisco and asked him all about North Korea. He had spent 6 weeks in North Korea researching his book. So that was just really like a great way to tackle that topic, was through Adam's point of view.
Yeah.
Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy, grew up in a suburb of Chicago that was predominantly Korean, and he had a lot of Korean friends growing up. So he kind of dove into why Korean food is so special to him, and why the food is underrepresented. So it's just showing our readers that Korean food culture isn't just for food writers and Korean Americans. There's a lot of it in our culture already.
Right. It's funny, as I was going through the page, I got to the picture of the spicy marinated crabs, and my thought was, how do you eat that? Then I get back to Andy Zimmerman's page, and it says that he even had a friend that was like, I don't know how to eat that.
Yeah. Well,
so how do you eat that?
How do you eat raw marinated crabs Well, it's a delicacy. It's like, in Korea, it's either marinated with a spicy sauce or a soy sauce based sauce. And it goes for like $80 a portion. And it's so good. It is incredible. Basically, live crabs are put into a bath of soju and marinated and cured for a couple hours. They die, and you then throw a bunch of aromatics and soy sauce onto them, and they marinate in their own juices. It's a little visceral, I know, and it's maybe not for everyone, but really this is how food is. This comes from a very traditional background of this preserving fresh seafood. But these restaurants that specialize in them make them so well, like make the most delicious version of them. And you basically crack open the crabs and you get this really unctuous meat that you can suck out or put some rice in there and scoop it out with a spoon. It's sweet. It's a little bit savory. There's a little bit of roe in there if you get a female. And the sauce it's sweet, and it's like a combination of soy sauce and sugar and fruit juices, and it's just such a cool combination. It's called ganjang-gaejang. That's the name of it in Korean. It's just like one of my favorite dishes of all time.
Now, what's your favorite thing to eat that you have in the cookbook?
Oh, that's a hard question, but I really like this dish called gamjatang, which is pork neck, perilla, black pepper, and potato soup. It's so good, and it's actually a little counter to what you think of with a Korean soup, which is mostly the sour kimchi flavor. But this one's like more of a porkier flavor, and I just love it. It's so, I go and order at a restaurant. You get these pork neck bones with all this great meat on them, and you pick them off with your chopsticks, and you put a little rice in the broth, and it's just such a great one-pot dish, and I love it so much. I encourage everyone to eat it.
Well, I'm going to have to try that one. Now, also, fried chicken feet. I'm not sure I can go there.
Well, yeah. That's
but you do leave the tip in there that, to supplement with other chicken meat. So I think I might be able to do the flavoring. Just, I don't know if I can do the feet.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. I prefer the chicken thighs as well. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for talking with me today. I'd want everybody to go out and either get I'm looking at the Kindle version right now. I'd love to have the hard copy, but any version of Koreatown is excellent. It's a great read. It's not your typical cookbook. It's going to make you want to stop at all the Koreatowns all over the United States. Like, seriously, it really does make you feel like, oh, I want to go on a road trip. So I want you to know that I really appreciate the book.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show, and really, Korean food is just starting to percolate above the surface, and the questions were great, and I do hope that your listeners will check it out and maybe cook some Korean food at home. I hope you make that Korean restaurant in your hometown.
Yeah, not only that, but I think honestly we're going to try to find a Korean store this weekend too, so it'll be our family project.
That's great. Great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Matt Rodbard today for joining us to talk about his new exciting cookbook, Koreatown, which he co-authored with Dookie Hong. If you'd like to find out more information, you can feel free to visit our website at loveyouabrunch.net. Also, thank you for tuning in to Love You a Brunch. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join us on our Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram at Love You a Brunch. If you have a question or comment, you can email me at jodi@loveyouabrunch.net or Skype us at Love You a Brunch Podcast. Also, visit our website at loveyouabrunch.net for any information about our episodes. Join us again next week. I'm Jodi Stapler, and Love You a Brunch.